On October 5, 1999, Droz broke his neck during a match on WWE's SmackDown Live. That night, the young and talented wrestler lost the use of his legs. Earlier that same year, the WWE Universe watched helplessly as Owen Hart fell to his death after an equipment malfunction during one of his stunts. These incidents marked the scariest moments in WWE history, and they reminded fans that wrestlers put their bodies and lives on the line every time they step into the ring. Let's take a deeper dive into these stories and check out other scary events. Owen Hart falls to his death. Owen Hart, a Canadian professional wrestler, was known for his high-flying moves and charismatic personality. He was a beloved figure in the industry, admired by fans and fellow wrestlers alike. However, on May 23, 1999, during a World Wrestling Federation (WWF, now WWE) event at the Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri, tragedy struck. Owen Hart was performing as his alter ego, the Blue Blazer, a superhero-like character known for his over-the-top entrances. On that fateful night, Hart was scheduled to make a dramatic entrance from the rafters, descending into the ring using a harness and grapple line. This stunt was intended to add an element of excitement and spectacle to the event, but it would soon turn into a nightmare. As Hart was being lowered into the ring, something went horribly wrong. The harness malfunctioned, and Hart fell from a height of approximately 78 feet, landing chest first on the top rope before being thrown into the ring. The broadcast quickly cut to a pre-taped video segment, and the live audience was left in a state of shock. Medical personnel rushed to the ring to attend to Hart, but it was clear that the situation was dire. Despite their best efforts, Owen Hart was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. He was just 34 years old. Droz breaks his neck. Moving on to another harrowing moment in WWE history, we turn our attention to the tragic neck injury suffered by Darren Droz Droszov, known to fans as Droz. On October 5, 1999, during a match on WWE's SmackDown TV show, Droz's life would change forever in a matter of seconds. Droz was a promising wrestler with a unique background. Before joining WWE, he had played professional football and was known for his athleticism and toughness. His transition to wrestling was marked by his charismatic personality and his ability to connect with the audience. However, his career was tragically cut short during a match against D'Lo Brown. The match seemed to be progressing as planned until a fateful moment when Droz and D'Lo Brown attempted a running powerbomb. As D'Lo lifted Droz into the air, something went horribly wrong. Droz landed incorrectly, causing his neck to twist awkwardly. The impact was immediate and devastating, resulting in severe spinal cord trauma. Medical personnel rushed to the ring to attend to Droz, who lay motionless on the mat. Fans and fellow wrestlers watched in horror as Droz was carefully placed on a stretcher and taken to the hospital. The diagnosis was grim. Droz had suffered a severe spinal cord injury that left him quadriplegic, paralyzed from the neck down. As compensation, WWE offered Droz a lifetime contract which he used to sustain himself financially until his death. Jerry Lawler suffers heart attack. On September 10, 2012, during an episode of Raw, WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler suffered a heart attack and collapsed at ringside. Jerry Lawler, a legendary figure in the wrestling world, was providing commentary alongside Michael Cole when the unthinkable happened. Lawler had just finished participating in a tag team match earlier in the evening, teaming up with Randy Orton against CM Punk and Dolph Ziggler. As the night progressed, Lawler's voice suddenly fell silent during the broadcast. Viewers at home and the live audience noticed the commotion at the commentary table as Lawler slumped over and collapsed. Michael Cole, visibly shaken, continued to provide commentary while medical personnel rushed to Lawler's aid. The broadcast team made the difficult decision to continue the show, but the atmosphere was tense and somber. The gravity of the situation was not lost on anyone, and the uncertainty surrounding Lawler's condition only added to the anxiety. Backstage, WE officials and medical staff worked tirelessly to stabilize Lawler and transport him to a nearby hospital. Michael Cole, fighting back tears, provided updates to viewers, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation and asking for thoughts and prayers for Lawler. Fortunately, Lawler's story took a positive turn. Lawler survived the heart attack and began his road to recovery. Daniel Bryan says goodbye. Our next story revolves around the beloved wrestler Bryan Danielson, known to WWE fans as Daniel Bryan. His journey through the professional wrestling industry is marked by incredible highs and devastating lows, with one of the most harrowing moments occurring in 2016. In 2016, Bryan's career took a dramatic turn when he suffered multiple concussions. The repeated head trauma led to seizures and the discovery of a brain lesion. The severity of his condition was alarming, and doctors advised him to retire from wrestling to avoid further damage. Paige. The announcement of his retirement was a heartbreaking moment for fans and fellow wrestlers alike. Bryan delivered an emotional farewell speech on Raw, expressing his gratitude for the support he had received throughout his career and his sadness at having to step away from the ring. The wrestling community was left in a state of shock and mourning. Daniel Bryan had become a symbol of perseverance and determination, and his departure left a void that seemed impossible to fill. Fans were devastated, but they understood the importance of Bryan prioritizing his health and well-being. Despite his retirement, Bryan remained involved with WWE in various capacities, including serving as the general manager of SmackDown. Eddie Guerrero collapses. Our next story takes us to one of the most heartbreaking moments in WWE history, involving the legendary Eddie Guerrero. Known for his incredible charisma, technical prowess, and ability to connect with fans on a deeply emotional level, Eddie Guerrero was a beloved figure in the wrestling world. However, in 2005, tragedy struck when Guerrero collapsed, leading to his untimely death shortly thereafter. Eddie Guerrero was a member of the famous Guerrero wrestling family and had achieved great success in various wrestling promotions before making his mark in WWE. Guerrero's lie, cheat, and steal persona endeared him to fans, and his in-ring skills made him one of the most respected wrestlers of his generation. However, behind the scenes, Guerrero battled personal demons, including substance abuse issues, which he had bravely overcome to make a triumphant return to the ring. On November 13, 2005, Eddie Guerrero was scheduled to compete in a match on WWE's SmackDown brand. The night before, Guerrero had been found unconscious in his hotel room by his nephew, Chavo Guerrero. Despite being rushed to the hospital, Eddie Guerrero was pronounced dead due to acute heart failure. Tyson Kidd damages his spinal cord. Let's move on to the harrowing incident involving Tyson Kidd, a talented wrestler whose promising career was tragically cut short due to a devastating spinal cord injury. On June 1, 2015, during a dark match against Samoa Joe, Kidd's life changed forever in a matter of seconds. Tyson Kidd, whose real name is Theodore James Wilson, was known for his exceptional skills in the ring. As a member of the famous Hart wrestling family, Kidd had wrestling in his blood and had worked tirelessly to make a name for himself in WWE. He had achieved success as a tag team specialist and had earned the respect of fans and fellow wrestlers alike. On that fateful night, Kidd was scheduled to face Samoa Joe in a dark match, which is a non-televised bout typically used to warm up the crowd before the main event. The match seemed to be progressing as planned until a moment that would change everything. Samoa Joe delivered his signature muscle buster to Kidd. As Joe executed the move, something went horribly wrong. Kidd landed awkwardly, and the impact left him motionless in the ring. Kidd was carefully placed on a stretcher and taken to a nearby hospital for immediate medical attention. The hospital confirmed that he had suffered a severe spinal cord injury and the damage was extensive. Paige breaks her neck. On December 27, 2017, during a match on WWE's Raw brand, Paige suffered an injury that would change the course of her life and career forever. Paige, whose real name is Saraya Jade Beavis, burst onto the WWE scene with a unique and rebellious persona that quickly made her a fan favorite. She made history by becoming the youngest Divas champion at the age of 21 and was instrumental in the women's wrestling revolution that transformed the division. On that fateful night in December, Paige was participating in a six-woman tag team match. The match seemed to be progressing as planned until a moment that would change everything. Paige was performing a move called the Thunderbuster when she landed awkwardly on her neck. The impact was immediate and devastating, leaving Paige in excruciating pain and unable to move. Fans and fellow wrestlers watched in horror as Paige was carefully helped out of the ring and taken backstage for further evaluation. Paige had suffered a severe neck injury, and the damage was extensive. The injury was a re-aggravation of a previous neck issue that had already required surgery. Doctors advised her that continuing to wrestle would put her at risk of permanent paralysis or even death. On January 2018, Paige made the heartbreaking announcement that she was retiring from in-ring competition. Bret Hart suffers a concussion. Bret Hart's world was shattered on December 15, 1999, at the Starrcade event in Washington, D.C. The excellence of execution, known for his rugged and physical wrestling style, was on the receiving end of a stiff kick from Goldberg. The impact was immense, leaving Hart with a severe concussion that would change the course of his life forever. The kick knocked Hart unconscious, and he collapsed to the mat. When he finally came to, he was disoriented and confused, unable to recall his name, family, or even where he was. The concussion was so severe severe that Hart struggled to speak, walk, and even remember basic details about his life. The injury forced Hart into retirement, a decision that was both heartbreaking and necessary. The concussion had left him with chronic headaches, dizziness, and memory loss, making it impossible for him to continue his wrestling career. The aftermath was equally challenging as Hart grappled with the long-term effects of the concussion. He experienced mood swings, depression, and anxiety, struggling to come to terms with the fact that his wrestling career was over. The concussion had also affected his personal life, causing tension in his relationships with his family and friends. Stone Cold breaks his neck. Stone Cold Steve Austin's rugged and fearless persona was put to the ultimate test in 1997 when a freak accident at SummerSlam changed his life forever. A botched pile driver from Owen Hart left Austin with a severely injured neck, leaving him temporarily paralyzed and facing a daunting, uncertain future. The incident occurred on August 3, 1997, at the SummerSlam pay-per-view event in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Austin was on the receiving end of a pile driver from Owen Hart, but the move went awry, causing Austin's head and neck to be twisted in an unnatural position. The impact was immense, leaving Austin unable to move or feel anything in his arms and legs. Doctors revealed that Austin had suffered a herniated disc, a ruptured vertebra, and a severely compressed spinal cord. The injury was so severe that Austin faced the very real possibility of never walking again, let alone returning to the ring. Austin underwent multiple surgeries, including a spinal fusion procedure, and embarked on a long rehabilitation journey. The road to recovery was paved with chronic pain, numbness, and tingling in his arms and legs. While Austin returned to the ring in 1998, he would eventually retire early due to the lasting effects of the injury. Shawn Michaels collapses. Shawn Michaels' dramatic collapse during a match against Owen Hart on the November 20th, 1995 episode of Raw is one of the most memorable moments in WWE history. The incident was designed to make it seem like Michaels had suddenly blacked out or suffered a legitimate injury. The match between Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart was a clash of titans, with both superstars determined to emerge victorious. The bell rang, and the two wrestlers engaged in a technical grappling contest, each trying to outmaneuver the other. As the match wore on, the action spilled outside the ring, with Owen Hart targeting Michaels' back and neck. Michaels, known for his resilience, refused to give up, but Hart's relentless assault took its toll. As the match progressed, Michaels began to stumble and falter, eventually dropping to the mat and going limp. The crowd was in shock, with many believing that Michaels had genuinely collapsed or suffered a serious injury. The commentators played along, adding to the drama and confusion. The angle was so convincing that even some of the WWE personnel and Owen Hart himself were initially concerned for Michaels' well-being. However, it was all part of the show, and Michaels was perfectly fine. Mick Foley takes too many chair shots. In January 24, 1999, at the Royal Rumble, the stage was set for an I Quit match between The Rock and Mick Foley, who was wrestling under his Mankind persona. What unfolded that night would leave an unforgettable mark on the minds of wrestling fans worldwide. The match was already intense, with both men giving their all in a no-holds-barred brawl. But things took a dark turn when The Rock decided to take things to a shocking extreme. With a steel chair in hand, The Rock delivered not one, not two, but 11 unprotected chair shots to Mick Foley's head. The sound of the chair shots echoed through the arena, each one more brutal than the last. The viciousness of the attack was unlike anything fans had seen before. What made this moment even more difficult to watch was the presence of Foley's wife, Colette, and their young children Dewey and Noelle sitting ringside. Mick Foley, known for his incredible resilience and willingness to endure pain, lay bloodied and dazed on the mat, yet he refused to utter the words, "I quit." The Rock's relentless assault seemed to have no end, and the tension in the arena reached a fever pitch. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Foley's body could take no more. With blood streaming down his face and his voice barely audible, he uttered the words, "I quit. Randy Savage is bitten." Our next terrifying moment takes us back to 1991, during an intensely personal feud between Macho Man Randy Savage and Jake the Snake Roberts. This rivalry was already heated, but what happened on that fateful night would elevate it to a level of horror that left fans squirming in their seats. Jake Roberts brought a live snake to the ring for psychological warfare. The tension was high as Roberts taunted Savage, who was already on edge. The sight of the snake's fangs digging into Savage's arm was both horrifying. Fans watched in stunned silence, unable to look away from the gruesome spectacle, the most chilling images in WWE history. As officials rushed to the ring to remove the snake and tend to Savage, the crowd remained in a state of shock. Big Boss Man is hung. One of the most iconic and controversial moments in WWE history occurred on January 24, 1999, at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view event. The Undertaker, in a fit of rage, hanged Big Boss Man from the ceiling of the arena using a noose and a harness. The storyline leading up to this moment was intense, with The Undertaker and Big Boss Man engaged in a bitter feud. The Undertaker, seeking revenge for Big Boss Man's betrayal, carried out a dramatic and shocking stunt. As the two superstars faced off in the ring, The Undertaker suddenly pulled out a noose and wrapped it around Big Boss Man's neck. The crowd gasped in horror as The Undertaker pulled the rope, lifting Big Boss Man off the ground and leaving him dangling in midair. The scene looked just like a lynching, and many fans were shocked and disturbed by the graphic nature of the stunt. However, it was all part of the show, and Big Boss Man was safely harnessing the entire time. He was not harmed in any way. The Undertaker debuts. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, had promised a mystery partner for his team. As the anticipation built, the arena was plunged into darkness, and the haunting toll of a bell echoed through the venue. The atmosphere was thick with tension as The Undertaker's undead appearance and stony glare rendered adults speechless and left children hiding behind their parents. As the match began, The Undertaker quickly demonstrated his dominance in the ring. The crowd's reactions were a mix of fear, awe, and excitement. The Undertaker's signature move, as he delivered the devastating maneuver and secured the pinfall, the message was clear. The Undertaker had arrived, and he was here to stay. The Boogeyman drops worms on JBL. In an attempt to establish the Boogeyman as a beloved scary character, WWE orchestrated a segment that involved hundreds of wriggling worms and a terrified JBL. John Bradshaw Layfield, better known as JBL, was in the ring, displaying his usual confidence and arrogance. Little did he know that he was about to become part of one of the most grotesque and memorable segments in WWE history. The Boogeyman made his way to the ring, carrying a large bag filled with worms, his face painted red and black, and his wild, unkempt hair added to his unsettling presence. As the Boogeyman entered the ring and confronted JBL, the tension grew. JBL began to show signs of fear. The sight of the Boogeyman, with his bag of worms, was enough to make even the most hardened wrestler uneasy. In a shocking move, the Boogeyman opened the bag and dumped hundreds of wriggling worms onto the mat. The sight of the slimy creatures squirming across the ring floor was horrifying. The crowd's reaction was a mix of screams, gasps, and nervous laughter. JBL's terrified reaction made the segment even more effective. The usually confident and composed wrestler was reduced to a state of panic as he tried to avoid the worms. JBL, unable to take any more, scrambled out of the ring, his face showing a mix of fear and disgust. Kane setting WWE employees on fire. Introduced as The Undertaker's evil brother, Kane's arrival in WWE was marked by chaos, destruction, and a horrifying display of supernatural powers that left fans in a state of shock and fear. It was October 5th, 1997, at the Bad Blood in Your House pay-per-view. The main event was a Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. As the match reached its climax, the arena was plunged into darkness, and Paul Bearer, The Undertaker's former manager, introduced Kane. With his towering figure, red and black attire, and mask that concealed his face, Kane made his way to the ring. The fiery pyrotechnics and dark, ominous music added to the sense of dread and foreboding. In a shocking and horrifying display of supernatural powers, Kane set random ringside employees on fire. The sight of flames engulfing the employees and their screams of terror created an atmosphere of pure horror. The crowd was left in a state of disbelief, unable to comprehend the brutality and chaos unfolding before their eyes. The employees, frantically trying to extinguish the flames, added to the sense of panic and fear. The image of people running and screaming, their bodies engulfed in fire, was both shocking and disturbing. The WWE Universe had never seen anything like it. The Undertaker gets buried alive. Another terrifying moment takes us back to 1996, during one of the most intense and brutal feuds in WWE history. The Undertaker and Mick Foley, wrestling under his Mankind persona, engaged in a series of matches that pushed the boundaries of violence and horror. But it was the Buried Alive match that would leave fans shocked. The Buried Alive match, held on October 20th, 1996, was a unique and horrifying concept. The objective was simple yet brutal: to throw your opponent into an open grave and bury them alive. The sight of the grave site at ringside, complete with a mound of dirt and a tombstone, created the right conditions for the match. As the match reached its climax, Mick Foley gained the upper hand and, in a shocking turn of events, threw The Undertaker into the open grave. With The Undertaker in the grave, Mick Foley and his allies began to shovel dirt onto him, burying him alive. The image of the dirt piling up on The Undertaker's body was horrifying, but just when it seemed that all hope was lost, something happened, signaling his survival in true monster movie style. Papa Shango curses Ultimate Warrior. Papa Shango, a villainous character inspired by voodoo, feuded with the Ultimate Warrior, a fan favorite in the early 1990s. The storyline took a dark turn when Papa Shango used his supposed voodoo powers to curse the warrior. On an episode of WWF Superstars, Papa Shango performed a voodoo ritual. Suddenly, the Ultimate Warrior appeared, and Papa Shango touched his forehead, supposedly transferring the curse. The warrior immediately clutched his stomach, stumbling around the ring in agony. He began to vomit violently, spewing a strange blood-like liquid. The scene was both shocking and disturbing, with the warrior's signature face paint smeared and his body writhing in apparent pain. This segment aired during a time when WWF programming was still considered family-friendly, and many young fans were left traumatized by the graphic and unsettling visuals. The angle was meant to showcase Papa Shango's dark magic, but ultimately went too far for some viewers. Where to, Stephanie? The Undertaker's kidnapping of Stephanie McMahon in 1999 was a pivotal moment in WWE history, marking a significant shift in the company's storytelling approach. The Undertaker, once a heroic figure, had evolved into a darker, more sinister character, and his obsession with Stephanie added a new layer to the storyline. The kidnapping angle played out over several weeks, with The Undertaker taunting Vince McMahon and the audience with his demands. He claimed that Stephanie was now his bride, and that she would be his companion in the afterlife. Stephanie's innocence and vulnerability made the situation even more disturbing, and the fact that she was the boss's daughter. The angle was a masterclass in building tension and suspense, keeping fans on the edge of their seats as they wondered what would happen next. The Undertaker's character had always been associated with death and the supernatural. It was a bold move by the WWE to explore such dark territory, and it paid off in a big way. The angle cemented The Undertaker's status as one of the greatest villains in wrestling history and paved the way for future controversial storylines. Dan Quirk dies in the ring. Our final and most tragic moment takes us outside the WWE universe to an independent wrestling event that ended in heartbreak. Although he wasn't a WWE superstar, the death of Dan Quirk at an Ultimate Championship Wrestling event in Taunton was shocking for the global wrestling community. On May 28, 2005, the match began like any other, with Quirk and his opponent exchanging moves and building up the excitement for the crowd. But as the match progressed, a series of events would lead to an unimaginable tragedy. In a bid to thrill the audience, Quirk climbed to the top rope, preparing for a high-risk maneuver known as the moonsault. This acrobatic move, which involves a backflip off the top rope, requires precise timing and coordination between the wrestler and their opponent. As Quirk launched himself into the air, his opponent was not in a position to catch him. The horrifying moment unfolded in an instant as Quirk struck the floor head first. The impact was brutal, and the crowd's cheers turned to gasps of horror as they realized the severity of the situation. With blood visible on the floor, the match was immediately stopped. Officials and medical personnel rushed to Quirk's aid, but the severity of his injuries was evident. Despite their best efforts, all attempts to revive Quirk were unsuccessful, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Thanks for watching. View more interesting videos by clicking the cards on your screen.